What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with Kevole, and we are here to discuss the Thursday nighter for week number 9 of the NFL season. Nick Mullens has become a legend in my mind. He's become a legend in Kevole's mind, I'm sure. And we're going to discuss Nick Mullens and the San Francisco 49ers and their big victory here today against John Gruden's Oakland Raiders, and we're going to get deep into discussion about the Oakland Raiders, I am sure, because I'm sure Kevole has a lot to say on that subject. And I think it's officially time to say, I know there was a couple teams up in the air, and this was arguably the game between the two worst teams. There's also the Giants as well. I think the Raiders, Kevole, are the worst team in the National Football League in 2018 right now. And let's just start it off with that point, because I know we're going to get into Nick Mullens, his great game, his signature game, and he could probably retire right now. And then you also have Kyle Shanahan and his brilliance and the 49ers effort tonight. But let's start off with the Raiders, because we need to start off with the Raiders. And what an absolute disgrace and just horrible performance this was from the Oakland Raiders, Kevole.
Well, I want to point out that you and Dylan, when you got word that Nick Mullens was the starting quarterback, switched your pick to the Oakland Raiders, and I did.
Honestly, I immediately regretted it, not because of how the game was going, but because I looked at this kid and I was like, this guy's so much fun. I wish I picked them just for the fun factor. Even if they would have lost, I would have been like, at least I picked Nick Mullens. And that's actually the reason I picked the 49ers in the first place. And then I go backwards and I pick the Raiders because I think there's no way the Raiders can lose this game to a third-string quarterback. And even as good as Kyle Shanahan is, he can't do it with Nick Mullens. I guess I was wrong, Kev.
Well, I think a couple of things here. I don't think that this game right now is for Chucky. I think Chucky is early 2000s, and this game has passed him by. I think the way that he's approaching players, I'm going to say it, the team quit on him. That this team, from pillar to post, quit on him. They don't want to play for Gruden. It's very clear. There was a lot of business decisions made tonight. You could see that even on George Kittle's run. They don't want to make the hit. Was Bruce Irvin's name even called tonight? Did you hear the name Bruce Irvin? I did not even hear that name. They didn't even throw at Richard Sherman. There's no talent on this team. You can tell me that they have 5 first-round draft picks all you want, and you can tell me and compare this to Jimmy Johnson all you want. He's not – Gruden is not a good general manager. Coaches have figured him out. And I'll also say this. I don't think Derek Carr is an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's the NFL franchise quarterback everyone thought he would be. You can blame the offensive line because there was, 6 sacks tonight, but there was a lot of them that was because of Derek Carr's decision-making. He moves too quick. He doesn't stay patient. And, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of receivers, but he's not an NFL quarterback. He's not a number 1 franchise NFL quarterback. We can blast Blake Bortles all we want, but Derek Carr is not – I'm not saying Derek Carr is as bad as Blake Bortles. That's not what I'm saying.
Thank God.
Not that hot take, but I don't think Derek Carr is a number 1 quarterback that's going to lead you to the Super Bowl. And I think Chucky kind of knows that, but he's out of his element. He's completely out of his element. This new league and Chucky are not getting along. And Tom Cable and Troy Aikman saying that Tom Cable is one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. That thing is an embarrassment. That offensive line was atrocious. The 49ers, that's not even some of their number 1 guys were running them over today. Yeah, you're right. If you're a Raiders fan, you should be absolutely disgraced. This was an obliteration. This is an embarrassment. I don't even know if does Chucky survive to Vegas?
He has a 10-year contract, so I would assume he would. But, nothing stays for too long in the NFL. That's why it's called the not for long league. But, I agree with a lot of your points. Starting off with Derek Carr, I think I'm not going to say he's a bad quarterback, but we've said for the last at least year and a half now that he has not played well. He's not performed to the level that we expected him to. And definitely right now he seems too timid. He definitely seems too conservative, and he seems a little bit beaten, and his like confidence is sort of what happened to his brother. I don't really want to compare the two. And I honestly feel like David Carr's career got off to a really poor start because he played on the worst NFL team, like arguably ever created. And the offensive line gave up like 80 sacks in 1 year. But with Derek Carr, I mean, it seems a lot like his brother in the fact that maybe the confidence is shaken since that injury. The offensive line isn't protecting him as well. Everybody around him's getting traded. Maybe he doesn't trust Gruden. Maybe there's something around him that's not working out. I do believe that Derek Carr has some talent. Like, you can clearly tell the guy can throw the ball. He can move around the pocket pretty well. I just think he needs to get a little like centered. He just seems like off. I don't really know what it is, but I don't think the guy will ever be an elite quarterback that can single-handedly lead a team. But I'm not going to say that I don't think Derek Carr can be at least a good quarterback that can lead your team to the playoffs again, because we have seen it, and I do still believe in his talent. But maybe Oakland isn't the place for that to happen. I'm not sure. As for the offensive line, it was horrendous tonight. Tom Kevole, I don't know what Troy Aikman is saying. And a lot of times you see an NFL broadcast today, it's clearly obvious, like especially Monday night, for reference, is there's clearly an agenda on almost all of these broadcasts. And Troy Aikman and Joe Buck are two of the better guys. They've been around for a while, and they know how to see through the BS. But that's why I say Monday night is pretty bad, because they don't see through that stuff. And usually Monday night, you can basically hear on Monday Night Football what the agenda of each coaching staff is. Like, they'll basically say it. Like, they'll say it on the broadcast. They'll be like, oh, this guy's played really well. We really like him. Maybe we'll sign him to a future contract. They don't say it in those words, but that's the way they say it. Or they'll say, well, this guy's the reason why we're losing. He's not very good. Like, if you listen to Monday Night Football, you can take that away. For tonight, I mean, you could clearly tell, they were starting to hint at the point they were trying to make John Gruden look good despite his really bad record right now and his really poor performance from his team, and really the belief in his team isn't there. And then also the questioning of Derek Carr, that was leaking through the broadcast. The offensive line being bad, the defense being horrendous, that was leaking through the broadcast. And I know those things are all true tonight, but sometimes you can kind of see what a franchise is seeing in their eyes through the broadcast of Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night football. Not so much Sunday night football, but especially Thursday and Monday night football, because Al Michaels is such a pro that he just knows. But you could just tell, like, it sometimes, and I really could tell tonight. And then on the opposite side of things, it was more positive and upbeat for the 49ers. So I think that the commentary team was kind of stretching with John Gruden, and it's a serious question. Like, my dad even texted me, and I think this was a good point. Like, he said, everybody is tense on the Raiders. Like, they're not relaxed.
Oh yeah,
Chucky makes them tense.
Yeah, he's always been like that. That's always been his MO. And you look at people like Pete, for example. You could say, okay, yeah, he runs a loose ship, but it's a calm place. You can make a mistake and it's okay. Doug Peterson, sort of the same thing. Like, some of the top coaches in this league are creating an environment where players can prosper, and Chucky's just not doing it. Gruden's not doing it. It's too tense. He's making these faces the whole time. I know that that's part of the Chucky, and he's doing this and that, and he's getting it. I mean, I swear to you, Mitch, I wouldn't be surprised if they get into a fist fight on that bench at some point. Like, did
you see that moment after that long play where Gruden was just pissed off with the defensive coordinator?
Yeah. Yep. And then there was another shot where Derek Carr was gave a little shot to Gruden. They didn't talk about that on the thing. He just kind of He flipped them off a little
They
bit.
had their all-pro guard playing left tackle.
Yeah.
Like, and this is another question. Like at the end of the broadcast, I think Aikman said, or Buck said, one of them, it's like that Gruden wishes that they could have traded more players. Yeah, they probably should have traded more players because nobody wants to play for John Gruden right now. Kelechi Osemele is one of those guys they probably should have traded. He has a big contract. A couple of those offensive linemen. On the defense, Bruce Irvin, you brought him up, probably should have been traded. Like, you probably should have traded as many of these guys that was in the old regime as possible. And you brought it up as well at the beginning of the broadcast. This team isn't very talented. They just don't have a lot of talent. You just go down this roster. We just said Derek Carr is pretty average. Doug Martin is not an NFL starting running back. And I know Marshawn Lynch is injured, but still, you look at the 49ers, they have 3 running backs better than Doug Martin. Jalen Richard is their leading receptions, leading in catches this year, and he's a running back, and he's not like a Christian McCaffrey, James White-esque type of player. He's very much below that level, and he led the team in receptions again today with 4. Martavis Bryant has been a head case basically his whole career because he hasn't been able to stay on the field because he's pretty much a dummy. I don't want to say head case, but he's just a dummy. Jared Cook is a good player, solid veteran, but he's always proven to be like around the 10th to 12th best tight end in the NFL. He's never been any better than that. Brandon LaFell, they signed off the street. Jordy Nelson is old. They don't have anybody on offense. Like, their best player is probably Kelechi Osemele, but now he's out of position playing left tackle. On defense, you have castaways. Reggie Nelson is old. Look at this roster. Clinton McDonald, Daryl Worley. The best players on this defense, Marcus Gilchrist. Like, these guys are like players that were role players in 2012. And now they're starting in, 2018 for the Oakland Raiders, even though they're probably worse than they were when they were role players. Their best players are probably Whitehead and Hankins. And these are players that they just signed like this offseason. They got rid of their best guy. And their other best players are probably rookies like Maurice Hurst and PJ Hall. And it's a very young team mixed with a lot of veterans that are just out of place. It's a team lacking a lot of talent. And yes, we will harp on Gruden because I don't think he's done a great job. But again, this roster is really, really poor, especially considering the 49ers are injured probably more than any team in the NFL. They don't have their quarterback. They don't have their running back. They don't have a number of defensive players. They don't have their best defensive player. And they're still outmanning them. Nick Mullens, 16 for 22, 3 touchdowns, 262. Okay. What does this performance say about the 49ers? And also, what do you want to give credit to for Nick Mullens, Kevole?
Well, I think let's I want to talk about this. This is something important. Deshaun Kaiser, Joshua Dobbs, C.J. Beathard, Brad Kaya, Chad Kelly, Nathan Peterman were all drafted in 2017. Nathan Peterman is the worst quarterback in NFL history. Chad Kelly has just been released for being a dumbass.
Yeah.
Brad Kaya, I will never be an NFL quarterback. C.J. Beathard's hurt, which okay, but he's not. Joshua Dobbs may get a shot when Ben retires. Who knows?
No.
Deshaun Kaiser, he's a mess. He's an absolute mess. This guy was not drafted. That's unbelievable that this guy, how do you miss on this guy? And this guy, like, from what they were saying, he's been preparing. Kyle Shanahan said he knew the offense more than everybody else. He made some really good decisions, made some really good throws. Found Garcon wide open. He had options wide open. He played with a lot of confidence. He looked prepared. He looked veteran. He even talks like a veteran. Kudos to this guy. It was a really great story. Great job for Nick Mullens. I mean, This kid has something. I'm not saying that he's a number one quarterback, but I'm excited to see what happens with Nick Mullens going forward.
I don't know if I should say this, but like this sort of reminded me of like really young Tom Brady. I don't really want to say that, but like just the same sort of story. Like really smart kid, tough, confident, comes in, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but makes some plays. Everybody loves him. The team plays better around him because he has heart. And like that's kind of what I saw tonight. And with a great coach. So I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a lot of credit for, of course, what he did tonight, because as they brought up on the broadcast, getting this guy ready on a short week when you didn't really know if CJ Beathard was going to play, and then putting him in positions like just the first play, for example, 5 wide, we're going aggressive, but you're going to complete a short little flat route to the tight end. You're just going to get it out there. Let's get it out quick and let's get some confidence going. And I think what you said, just the biggest thing for me with Mullens was his confidence and his recognition of the offense. He really seemed like he knew what he was doing. He was under control. And that's the biggest thing for like a guy, like for Shanahan to say that he knows more than like Pierre Garçon, or I don't know if he was speaking that over Garoppolo. I'm not sure, but like to know more than like Pierre Garçon, who's been in this offense like multiple years and even back into Washington days, like that's pretty good. Like this young kid's obviously studied, worked hard, and you could see it on the field. And yeah, he's not like Aaron Rodgers out there, but like he made a lot of good decisions. He didn't really make any bad throws. He maybe made 1 or 2 at the most. And he really was on the money for the most part. He made the right reads, and he didn't really shy away from making big throws. That was a big thing as well, and that won them this game. He didn't have to do too much, too sexy, but like that one touchdown, I don't think I saw anybody in the entire TV screen other than Pierre Garçon, but at least he hit him, and it worked. So
there was a couple of times that he had a Raider in his face, and he still made a good throw. So too,
yeah,
right?
Like I think the biggest things is just sometimes we don't take into account, like some people don't take into account some of the intangible parts of a quarterback, and especially when you're a young quarterback, those are huge. Confidence, intelligence, and just heart. And I think that's what Nick Mullens showed tonight. We're not saying he's the next coming of Dan Marino with his arm, but he was pretty good out there tonight, and he showed a lot of grit. So that was nice to see, and hopefully he can get a couple more starts under his belt. And they have a legitimate conversation. Does he start over CJ Beathard? Because he played very well today. And you could argue he played better than CJ Beathard has played. So definitely. The other 49ers players kind of want to highlight. Raheem Mostert left the game, but he had that one big run. I wish him the best coming back. It looked like he broke his arm.
Yeah.
Or something. But he's really looked good. He's looked better than any Raiders running back. And he looked like he had a little bit of a spark there. He just has like a good speed. You can clearly see he has a burst through the hole, and hopefully he comes back quick. Matt Breida didn't have his best game overall, but the running game was steady and reliable. George Kittle. Okay. I said, I think a couple weeks back, this guy needs to be considered. He's playing like a top 5 tight end right now in the NFL. He made a one-handed catch and then proceeded to run for like 70 yards. This guy, I think, more than a lot of tight ends in the NFL, can do a lot of what you ask him to do, whether that's catching the football, running after the catch, blocking. He's athletic. And this is a guy that's also like has to put on weight just to be a tight end. Like he's a wide receiver with like added weight on him, and he can basically do it all at a tight end position. So I've been really impressed with Kittle this year. Very athletic guy, tough to cover. Pierre Garçon had a decent game today, 56 yards and a touchdown. Richie James, another guy that came out of nowhere with a huge 30-yard catch. Goodwin was quiet. Defensively, Fred Warner has impressed me, the rookie, whenever he stepped in for Foster for the most part, and he's been one of their better players this season with 2 pass deflections, 7 tackles. Cassius Marsh, my favorite player, with 2.5 sacks today. on the quarterback. Dakota Watson also 1.5 sacks. Solomon Thomas a sack. But it was nice to see the 49ers actually have a pass rush. That was interesting because they usually don't. Any comments there on the 49ers as a team, offense or defense?
They have some weapons. It's just it's going to take time to put this all together. And obviously, when you're down to your third string quarterback and third string running back, it's not going well. But, they do have some weapons, and I agree with you. And, from a fantasy perspective, if your tight end gives you 16.80 points, you have a good chance to win your fantasy week, because that's pretty much for a lot of tight ends. And I have George Kittle as a fantasy and as my tight end in one of my fantasy teams. So, hail me. I also have Derek Carr as a quarterback in another fantasy league. So whatever.
I did that as well. So, and Fabiano did that too. And Evan Silva did that too. So I don't feel too bad.
Yeah. Seven points for Derek Carr today in ESPN fantasy. And bench. But they have some weapons. It's just, they haven't, the 49ers they kind of came off a little bit with some bravado in the preseason with the pictures and the Instagram. And I think next year, you're not going to see that as much with Garoppolo and McKinnon. I think they're going to play that a little bit low and get ready for the season. We'll see where the 49ers are. I think they're a couple years away from being a real solid playoff team. But I think Richard Sherman is a good add there. I think he's been a good influence on the team there. They just need to draft and keep building what they have.
And they play hard. And, this could have easily been a game where they just mail it in. But they played hard. They played well. And they came out with a big win. And that's the biggest thing. They believe in the program. You can see the players believe in the program. And as we saw, they have a lot of young players they can build around, whether that's Breida, Mostert as complementary running backs, Marquise Goodwin as a deep threat, George Kittle as the tight end. You have a great fullback in Kyle Juszczyk. You have a decent offensive line that they could still add to. Fred Warner's a decent young piece. They have to decide on what they're doing with the defensive line, but Armstead's really good. And Buckner's really good. And then you have Thomas there who's improving. Witherspoon, I think, has been solid, not great at corner. And then you have some couple veterans with Garcon and Sherman on both sides of the ball. So we'll see what the 49ers do this offseason in the draft. But I think the biggest thing the Raiders are looking forward to is the draft. They wish the draft was tomorrow. So.
Yeah, probably. But they need a lot of stuff.
They do. All right.
They're the expansion team.
All right. We're going to the comments. Predator says, Raiders of the lost ass. Okay. Says, gosh, I do not know if the Raiders or Giants are worse.
The Raider, I think the Giants are in a worse shape because they are insistent on Eli Manning. And I think that they're going to have to replace their coach again. But I think that they have the building block in Barkley. I still believe in the running back. I believe if you have a good running back, it helps.
You don't think that the Giants should have picked Mullens over Saquon?
No. That's not going to be a hot take.
I was just going to say, though, to complement your point, when Adrian Peterson stops you after the game and talks with you for a good 5 minutes and preaches to you, you're pretty good. Yeah. He doesn't do that with everybody. So there you go. And the thing is, he also said, I think even before the game started, he was basically saying, there's a lot of great running backs that have been drafted in recent years, but Saquon is the best. He's basically what he said. So, I mean, when Adrian Peterson says that, I think he knows what he's talking about. So
yeah, he's
Rob says Nick Mullens looked good. Predator says Nick Mullens needs another 6 games to prove it for me. Just give the guy a break, man.
For one game, it's a good game.
Rob said fact or fiction, Derek Carr is benched next week.
probably fiction. I still think they're going to play Carr.
I would say fiction as well. The Vegas Raiders. Carr needs a change of scenery, says Rob. Predator says time for Carr to leave. Gaiman says the Raiders are tanking for first pick. If they do get first pick, will they pick a quarterback?
You have no choice. I mean, this quarterback class isn't all that deep, so you're going to have to first pick. You probably need to.
Knowing the Raiders, they would probably trade back and get more picks.
Didn't Jimmy Johnson do that with the Cowboys?
Well, he did the Herschel Walker thing, which they talked about all night, but yeah. I don't know if they had the first pick. Well, they picked Troy Aikman and they picked Emmitt Smith.
Troy
I don't know. Go ahead.
Troy Aikman, I think, was the first pick.
Yeah. Emmitt wasn't, but he was up there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know what the Raiders... Maybe they'll look like geniuses. Who knows? Do the Raiders trade down if they get first pick, says Rob? We'll see. I don't know if I can answer that right now, but I think whoever gets first picked is picking a quarterback. That's probably what's going to happen. And if it's the Raiders, they'll probably get rid of Carr in the process. And I'm sure a team would take Carr. I don't know what for, maybe like a second. But I'm sure somebody would take him. That's pretty much it for the...
Well, here's another let me toss another scenario just quickly before we go.
Comments. Okay.
Would you trade that number 1 pick to get an established quarterback?
Who?
Well, it's...
That's the biggest who.
The only one on top of my head is Dak.
Who'd you say?
Dak. Prescott.
No, I would keep the pick.
Let's see. I'm just going through some lists here. I'll just throw a scenario out. Russell.
Yes, I would do it.
Cam.
Yes, I would do it.
Stafford.
Who is contract? Russell's contract's bad too. I would probably do it.
Just going through some other ones. Mariota.
No chance. I wouldn't even trade a third for Mariota.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Trying to think of, there's
probably only like 12 quarterbacks I would trade the first overall pick for. How about you?
If I were the Raiders and I'm going into Vegas, I would at least ask about Cam and Russell.
I don't think those guys are going anywhere. I think we're just
no. But if you're going to Vegas,
would you trade the first overall pick for Tom Brady?
No.
Okay. I wouldn't either.
But if you're going into Vegas, you do need a franchise quarterback, and I don't know if you're going to get one in this draft.
Well, the Oregon guy is promising, but we'll see. There's also Nick Bosa, who's a stud, and a couple other guys, but I haven't really looked too deep into the draft class yet. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for 49ers Raiders, guys. We talked about pretty much what we wanted to talk about, but it was a big win for the 49ers. You know, they move on. They get their second win of the season. Nick Mullens looks like a stud. And moving forward, the 49ers will be a team that I'm sure the Bottom Line View will be rooting for just for the fun of it, and they're a fun team. And the Raiders, we'll see what moving forward they're going to do, but they're probably the worst team in football right now. And honestly, that's sad to say because I don't mind cheering for the Raiders at times. I find them, you know, I love the history of the NFL, and the Raiders to me are a big part of that. And whenever they're not a good team, it hurts. I want to see them good, and hopefully they can get back to that in the next couple of years. So
I feel for Raider fans because they've been through a lot. The Oakland ones are losing their team. This franchise hasn't really been in stability, and yet they have a really strong fan base. It's unfortunate. I do like what I did appreciate about tonight is the legacy of both of these franchises, and I loved how Fox displayed that tonight for both teams. I think that was really important, and the Raiders, the history of the Raiders is important to the NFL. And for you youngins out there, you have to look up those 70s and those 80 Raider teams, because they were mean teams, and you would think that there'd be a lot of penalties and all of that these days.
Okay, Cap.
But they were part of the vicious. They're part of the legacy of the NFL. They're part of the NFL story. Absolutely. And look, even Google Marcus Allen run in the Super Bowl. It's one of the best runs. And Google Bo Jackson's run on Monday Night Football
against the Seahawks.
Yeah, he ran from the Kingdome to Pike Place to the Canadian border, and then went back to Nevada and then back home, and he was still not touched by a single Seahawk.
All right, on that note, we will leave you there. From Mitch and Kevole, hope you enjoyed the recap. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new. Peace out, guys, and see you on the streams this weekend. Packers, Patriots, Sunday Night Football, Saints, Rams right before that. Peace.